All right, cool. We are project one final draft. Before I do that one, let me get Andrew edges. All right, so read these. Change the things we discussed. Text is better. Okay. Second sketch page still in progress. Mostly there. Okay. Callouts, renderings, cool. CAD renders, yep, takes time. Everything blue. Okay, good front page. What's the one for? This is project one. I'm not a big fan of page numbers. I think they create issues in the long run. If I can back out one notch. Cool. Kind of disagree with that second statement. Designing a smart ceiling fan should be about more than aesthetic. Okay. I got dyslexic and read. Designing a smart ceiling fan should be more about aesthetic. Okay. So one, I'm not a good reader. That could be an issue. Or change the sentence so someone like me can't mess that up. Designing a smart fan has to be more than aesthetics. Make it a bit more strong language. Is smart worth it? Good question. The next thing I say, just in terms of hierarchy, I see your images. Is smart worth it? But if I look bottom left, the cost, smart appliances are up to more 50% expensive than their competitors. Just making sure. Get out of here, I'm working. Everything else being equal. Well, is it equal? Feature software updates, to me it's a pretty big differentiation because it's not locked in time. It can always improve. Alright, what do users want? Nobody wants a smart ceiling fan. Good point. Good point, good, like it. And I can read the long answer if I want to. I like the option. Let's take out maybe some language that's a bit extraneous, right? To even begin making a smart fan viable. How about to make a smart fan viable, we must show its value to our users. Convection, temperature, money. Now, is this a 1, 2, 3? It appears to be right. So you got these lines that move through the page that lead from left to right, so it kind of implies movement. Small thing. You see how that line is longer than that line? Hypothetically, they should be equal, but I don't think normal people will see it. All right, sketches. Cool. We already talked about that, so I'll leave that alone. Develop sketches. As long as you're telling me how you went about doing it. This is pretty cool looking too. Is this a cross section though? This is me still trying to figure out if it's a cross section. Yes. Do I need, let's keep current. Do I need to know that it's a cross section? What do you mean that they can be drafted? Are you talking about draft angle or produce a prototype? How does it help you with the process? I mean, does it show tolerances? Does it show collisions in geometry? Also, isn't there like a rotational component, right? Because this can do everything on one axis, right? But what about circular? If it's circular, if it spins and tilts, then you can get a larger direction. Do you need to communicate that, or is that just an understood? Cool. I know you're finishing that, but I'd like to see where these go. Show wall switch control. Okay. I won't say the app isn't necessary. It just like gives you multiple options. Dang. I like it. I mean, especially the fact that you're aware that you've got to show the entire thing. Yes, it's about making a device, but it's got to be more about the person. Cool. I like the direction. Final drafts. Who got it in first? Let me not look at it. Look at it. Small detail. I would just push these up slightly. Make these 3 bars of text a bit more compact. Another small detail. You see how this line is more of a dark gray, maybe 80%, and that's 100%. Let's make that donut around that same 80% gray. Interesting question. I'm glad I came up with it. / I'm glad you used it. Light quality, warm glow, soft glow. What are you trying to communicate here? Okay. All right. So you want a strong natural shape. And it appears self-supporting. So let's make sure, and symmetrical, let's make sure we come back to those again. So when you're explaining why it's a success, touch on those points again. I like this a lot. This is nice. Still struggling with this a little bit. I'm willing to have a second opinion on the usefulness of the light. Yes, it's important, but this is your design. This is your choice, but they're also just pictures of light. Your design, essentially somebody else's design. So I could be wrong, but I'd like a second opinion. I wonder, I feel like we said kick those out. Since you haven't kicked them out, is there a way to show like a paper over each one? And that could be just a simple Photoshop in front of these lights. That way you see the light's natural color and then the transparency or permeation of the light that comes through. All right. Maybe we talked about this on Wednesday. But a way to make this more dynamic is laser hits material. So you take your design, same isometric 3/4 view, feed it into the design, it drops in the shipment. You put a little shipping information, another arrow, and then you have somebody assembling it. So I think visually that will communicate your entire process. And if I understand it visually, when I read it, it enhances it. But if I don't understand it visually, I have to do more reading. If I don't do more reading, then I don't know. If you got them, maybe one big image and then 2 smaller detail images. Dynamic structure, warm glow, supported. That should come back to this. Natural shape, maybe something you touch on. But it's much better. Not done, but much better. Loading, loading. Hop, hop, hop. This is what happens when you throw in files that are not 20. My suggestion would be well, it could be my internet slow, I don't know, or your file size is over 20. All right, nothing changed there. Ooh, a bit dodgy. Some formatting issue, and then we talked about the possibility of including, man, what is up with this page? I literally don't know. We talked about the idea of formatting. The big green egg, I mean, it seems like it's your competition. It kind of falls into research. If no one else is doing it as sophisticated as yours, it'd be a good thing to point out, especially the big green egg. I mean, I think in the outdoor culinary industry, they're, top 3 brands. And if the shoddy image that you showed me is the best that's happening, then maybe it's worth mentioning and saying that there's no elegant, refined solution on the market. All right, so looking for 2 quotes. Okay. This almost demands a persona. Like, okay, so what type of buyer is this? What type of budget do they have? That affects the afford. Then again, they're going to Target. They're not going to William and Sonoma. So maybe that tells me a little bit about their purchasing habits. Cool. I like the personal touch that these quotes give me. Okay, borrowing somebody else's, not a problem. Maybe this is another competitor. Yep. Talked about that page. This helps, it does. Right, so heat comes up into the chamber. This part doesn't make as much sense, right? So it goes, this, you're showing it moves up into like this upper chamber. Heat, something exchanges, and then it's cold. Maybe it's 2 ways. Maybe this is convection heat, and this is smoke. Fire. Just not sure. Let's talk that one out. Smoke study model. So it's the same way about this one. Of all the images in the portfolio spread, this tells me the least. I mean, you literally have to tell me that it's got to be at optimal working height. I think this is a situation where context could help you, but context is hurting you, right? So if this was next to a couple of grills that were lower than ideal height, then boom, instantly I get it. But the context kind of messes me up. Is it possible to Photoshop it in there? Yeah, but to me, it's the least important information that we have so far. And in terms of like volumetrics, I mean, you could just look at the competition and say this is the one that sells the most, or this is the most ideal size for smoking, and like that could be your volumetric. All right, you gotta give me a closing statement, right? It could be a quote from earlier, or it could be a statement from you, the designer, saying, "Hey, this gives you an opportunity you never had before." Maybe what this is, this bar is for. I don't know. And I don't know why there's 2 of these, now that I'm looking at it. 57 shouldn't kill me, but for some reason it was tough to load. Cool. Right? What's nice about this is I don't get the opportunity to critique your geometry up there. One downside, it is bordering on the fuzzy side, and I think you already knew that. But I would consider that a minor detail, maybe one that we leave to the very end. It's not going to change anything. Okay. One thing you ain't got to tell me is a year. The reason why is if you're using this from 2 years from now, you already date it by giving it a year. Ryobi prize, hooray! No, because it's never clean. Maybe there's a better way to start this off. Let me see if it would be appropriate. Alright, so you're talking about particulates and being inhaled, not so much the cleanliness of my workspace. So let's see if we can come up with two different questions. Have you ever noticed how dusty your workplace is? Still not very impactful. Let's start off with a statement, and we kind of got to flex around a little bit with the exact numbers. I don't know. Did you know the average shop worker who's worked for 5 years inhales 10 pounds of sawdust? I don't know if that's true or not. If you have something like that that's alarming and shocking value, then you bring attention to the issue. But just by saying, hey, you know how clean it is, it lacks to bring home the punch. All right, these two. All right, so which one of these statements is more impactful? And what type of room is this? It's a hospital? I don't mind being like a 50-50 divide. I'm not going to try. What are you trying to say? Okay. Then this is not really important. If you have the fact earlier on, and then you say, all right, let's see if we can decrease that. Or you can say, so many people a year develop lung issues, develop asthma, or develop other disease from workplace particulate inhalation. So there you're going from, let's see, statement to fact to how do we fix it. This is one of the problems that I think a lot of students have. You took what you had in class and you just dropped it down. This could work, but that's what I look at first because it's so out of place. Easy solution, right? To work on these things in two different sets. And we can't introduce this now because we know we're not talking about chemicals. Or are we? Because we're not about shop hazards. We're talking about shop particulates at this point. And yes, these can be good methods, but why are they inferior? All right, effectiveness and price. So it appears the more you spend, the more effective the filtration is, right? But visually, we got to fix some of this. I'd rather like read one statement on the page so you can, are different devices better at handling different things? Or is it just all particulates are equally bad? I don't mind having a 2-page research. You can tell me one statement on one page and then another statement on another. I don't mind having more pages. It's just, it limits my, well, it doesn't limit. It helps me understand one chunk of information at a time instead of having to battle through two. It's like introduce a concept, you get it, good. And then you introduce another concept. Target price is $145. You can make a little translucent bubble here and show that as a zone. Because right now, 145, you're slightly under the fan. Good, gotten better. Downside, I can see your pixels. I can see the pixels even worse. So you know what you got to do, which is resketch. You know what? Instead of resketching just flat out, take that picture into either Sketchbook or take it into Photoshop. Use it as an overlay. Sketch on top of it, make it better. Because the perspective is fine on it. Just, if you got to redo it and you know you got to redo it, make it look a bit better. That way, this is like round 1 and this is your development round 2. This is better. I'm still wrestling with the form VBO. Until I know something better to do. I say flip-flopping, right? Because you did the sketch and then the sketch helped you develop a model. Because you're not really developing in this at all. Like, you either grab the model, said it's a good model, it fits my needs, let's develop the shape, which you could, I don't know. Or you did the sketch and then you made the laser cut model off of the sketch. Don't really know. And just a little craftsmanship, you see like your white around it here. Get rid of those. I know we're keeping, well, how much of this are we keeping? Because it's your lower container. Same thing with this, you just have some weird white spots missing. Last thing on this, instead of saying like, this is development, which it's good, what did you learn from it? Right? Can you be, the Mario metric was successful, but I needed to make the edges more ergonomic, or I wanted to include more visual interest, or more visual brand elements. Something to that effect. Could we have less text? Because I see roadblock, unnecessary, and essential. A lesson learned. Okay, so this could be a really good aha page, but let's make it, instead of a lesson learned, let's be very frank about it. Let me see what the problem is, that way I can phrase it correctly. Use the wrong size filter. I'd like one chunk of like a statement. Let's see what we could say. The original filter caused I can't even think right now. I'm literally going to pause this and think. Pausing. Alright, let's give it a better shot. I chose the wrong filter. Let's like, instead of a lesson learned, have this bolded in the paragraph, which should be a little bit smaller paragraph. I messed up. I chose the wrong filter size, which led to unused, unnecessary space. This mistake set me back, but made the overall design better. Alright, so that's your final. Make it a bit bigger. I like seeing the progress between these. But what are you developing? Because at this point, I'm convinced that you made a physical error, so you've got to make a physical solution. This just feels like decorative. And the more I look at it, the part that you're showing doesn't really change a lot. I mean, you put the 1+, you do a little Arabi change, do a little color change. But the biggest difference is maybe the application up here. I would cut the middle one out. It just seems like it doesn't have that much of a change. First and last one. If you do first and last, you can give one more statement about how this changes or how that changes. Final, right? So if you got this open space, this is good. If you got this open space, let's make a statement. Or you bring attention, or you do a little call out. Technically it's exploded view, but it's a weak exploded view. Better? Better? Good. Now I can pay attention to these things. I don't know if I'm digging this because like this background image makes it difficult to read. It draws my attention away from anything that I might be reading. To me, that's really good. We got to zoom in a bit to it. Like I understand these are accessories, but they do feel out of place. The A, B, C, all units combined. I don't know. What's a way for me to instantly recognize that these make a more of a system? All right, I'm going to ask for it again because I think it's important. I mean, this helps me understand, but I'd like a sequence of use to just sit there and absorb. And if it does absorb, where does it absorb it from, right? Does it pull it in right through the filter and produce it right there? Or does it filter in right here? Is there a way that you design the front end so it's kind of like a megaphone? It absorbs or inhales more particulates because of its placement? I think it's a good opportunity. Ta-da. It's better. I like it. Okay, but these are a bit disconnected, right? I never read the problem or the options. I just started reading your graphic and reading your options. You could drag it down and change color, put it in this context. This is a situation of that border, I thinking it's more hurtful than helpful. You can make it thinner, run it along the top or the bottom, but by running on both, you're squishing the amount of space that you could use. My eye is immediately drawn to this area where you cut it off. So one option is just use the full car, make the image a little bit smaller. Uber, right? I guess you don't have to tell me it's Uber if I see a cell phone that says Uber. Walking, yes, walking is an option. All right, so let's drag these down. And how do we, everybody knows that there's preferred options and less preferred options. That's not a very fun option. That's not a fun option. That would be ideal. That's still good. That kind of means my morning's ruined. I wonder if we can come up with a very small, very intuitive system of symbols. Be like, smiley face. Actually, I guess they could be... I want to use emojis in this, but since this is all black and white, if you introduce an emoji, then your attention's drawn to that because it'll be color and friendly and bubbly. But some way that we can instantly rate this system and be like, there is no really good option. Then, if there is no really good option, how do we introduce a new service for Ford? We got a lot of kind of weird, unused white space. All Okay, so how might we introduce a service for Ford? Maybe say, hey, this is the brand of Ford. 1 or 2 images, boom, boom, boom. Ford is this, 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 and then you introduce what's the safest way. So we have the brand of Ford, we have the problem, and then we go over here is how would Ford solve the problem with their brand language and with the options that are available. Or how do you create a new option that doesn't exist? So if that is the case, maybe we should show a little transparent zone. It's like a bubble that's maybe 30-40%. I don't want to use gray. I feel like there's a lot of the black and white on this. 30 or 40% light blue. We'll use that. I like these images to be bigger, right? So we have almost 70% of the space isn't used at all. And white space can be effective. I just don't think it's being best used here. Mission and vision might go here. This moves into this section. You make these a bit bigger, right? It could be 2 levels, 1, 2, 3, come back here, 4, 5, 6. So a way to make that bigger, a bit more apparent, because like when I'm in this video mode, I can't zoom into your project. I don't know what these are, and they are rather pixelated. So if you want to use them, which I don't know why we're using them, you gotta vectorize them. All right, I'm gonna say this for the third and probably final time. You've got to tell me there's a reason why we're transitioning from solving a problem to doing a logo. You have to have a section that says, how can we apply Ford's new solution into an exhibit design space? Because without that, you did a logo. Well, okay, why wouldn't they just use their own logo and do Ford Rapid Transit? So I need a transition page. Also, I'd like more development because you only really have 2 logos. You have the hexagon C and you have the tire. And there's not really a lot of development. Most of this is only color change. So, do you really need a full page for it? You have your pamphlet. You can make these bigger and get rid of that border. POP display, exhibit. I think the exhibit design needs more content. I mean, you went from a problem. How do you explain that problem into an exhibit design space? It's like you just throw solutions at me, and I don't know why they're being thrown at me. Also, in terms of development, call out, say, this idea worked because, this one didn't work because, this is better because it has brand integration, this one works because of these reasons. That way I can understand your thought process, because at the moment you just show shapes and then you render shapes. And we gotta do better render than this, because all this is a box for ants. Are all the walls really closed in? I much prefer this one when the top's off. I mean, if you are going to be at an exhibit show, you don't necessarily need a top because lighting's already provided. I would rather, all right, so that's a good shot. I like these superior to your model because I can't tell that there's manufacturing errors, or in your case, prototyping errors. So, I might switch back or develop it so it looks more open and spacious and lively, because that's not doing it for me. All right, a few more things to do on that one. Pause for another second. Good changes. Maybe a little formatting thing we can do here. Let's make that line stop here, and then we will have the right of the White Odyssey logo, the Water Odyssey logo end right here, and then a collaboration with Water Odyssey. It should end on this implied line we're going to create, but that works. Who is Water Odyssey? Let's change that T so it's not bolded. All right, I think we need a little more contrast on this page. You see, it's just a lot of things to look at. How do we bring someone's attention to it? Or what we could do is have a light blue and then have a darker blue rectangle in the middle behind all this, and then a light blue again, just to help my eyes see this as 3 different levels or 2 different levels instead of just 1. Also, I'm not really sure we need 3 lines. I would put who and is on the same line. What is, and then lowercase t, their expectation. Is there any reason why you keep on bolding the first letter? I just don't think it's more distracting than helpful. And why do we have so many exclamation points? I'm never going to read that much. For me, 4, maybe 5 lines deep is as much as I'll read. That could work. Is that the same size? Yeah, it appears to be the same size. Okay, next page. Better, thank you for changing that. Development. I'm not really sure you have to tell them it's ideation or development. Ideation, if anybody knows sketching, they know you're working through ideas. I like how you have the written text here. I would have, I don't know if you're going to like me saying this, a little bit less written text. Give me 3 or 4, but that are fully legible. So this is easy to read. I'm just seeing maybe too much. So what's most essential statements that you learned through the initial ideation process? So maybe take a couple text away. Let's get rid of ideation, which means you can get rid of development. And since this is color, if we can add some color to these, even if it's just, you've got to do like a yellow, or orange, or a blue, or a combination of them here. It can be subtle, but it'll say, I took this concept and developed it over here. I'm okay with you kind of wiggling down. It's a good way to spread out information. I would make this arrow a little bit lighter and put an arrowhead on it. That way it's easy to read. Good opportunity to throw your yellow over here. So you can do your object in orange and blue, subtle little notes of it, but then the line can be, orangey yellow. Combination, attraction, and learning. Let's see if you hit those. Combination, attraction, and learning. Good. Okay, one downside is both of these images look exactly the same, and it appears you're telling me 2 different bits of information. I think this is fine because you're just talking about the pieces. But if you're talking about solving a problem, how does this design solve that problem? And I feel like they're going to go about it in different ways. Right now, we're not learning about any social skills because it's just one person, so they're not being social. Attraction, children, fun form, bright colors. Yeah, that's okay with me. Parents, visibility. What I'd rather see is like 3 blocks or 3 areas. And then you're talking about combination. I use this part to fix this problem. Attraction. And it doesn't have to be to one image. It could be 3 images showing how you solved a problem through your design. let's make this 2-line sequence of use. I don't think it's necessary to say it, but because you're going to have this kind of awkward white space, I'm okay with it being there, but it doesn't need to be 3 lines deep. I feel like, but also like consistency on where you're putting your numbers and your text. Let's say we're going to always put it on the left side, left corner. So this is either left top or left bottom. So either left top or left bottom. I know that means you're going to have to rethink where that 8 comes. Maybe you scale it down a little bit, or you scale it up. You put the 8. Solution worked. Same thing with 3. Work it on the top here. Squish it down a little bit. I'd also like a second opinion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I don't know what SPS is. Seconds per splash. What does that mean? Gallons per minute. Instead of just telling me how it functions, I'd rather you show me. Show me the 2 modes. Show me consistent mode. It fills, it dumps, it fills, it dumps, it fills, it dumps. You get this many splashes per second. And then on another side, competitive mode, where you're going back and forth with your friend. It's like you're telling me 2 things one page and 2 things one page. Or rather, 1 idea one page, 1 idea the other page. Good. Good last image. This also brings to the question, are you running these as spreads? And it appears you are doing them as spreads. So that can work as a spread. That could work. That can work. That can work. This has to work as a spread at this point. That can work as a spread, but this one ends on a single page. So how are we going to fix that? And if you do post 2, one not being on time, and you want me just to look at one of them, I would like a comment saying, hey Bush, I posted a new one, read the new one. And you just filled in some of the images, so no change in feedback. Miss Boy. Talk about this a little bit. Is seeing the nursing school really that important? And could we bring the darkness of this green background up a little bit? I lose some of the text. So just the visual things I look at, right? You're talking about the design brief and the research. I have to dig through here to find it. So this might be an opportunity for using bolding on selective places and bolding in such a way where this makes a bit more sense, because just assuming, and I know the project is, but I'm assuming that you worked for some type of construction and it was nice you had it at Auburn University. Concept development. This works now, right? Because you opened it and say, hey, these are the different industries we could work for. These are my investigations. Because to me, this is not iteration yet. This is just exploring the possibilities. You're not developing a concept. You're exploring the wide range of concepts. So, almost like how do you get from one paragraph to the next paragraph? You have a bit of a transition sentence. So, let's find some type of transitional element. So, I think there's another opportunity for a little hand-drawn, different ergonomics for concrete workers, different assets for, just give me a little hint on how we transition from this page to this page, and that way it's continuous instead of segmented. All right, I don't want the solution to be there quite yet. What if we just used a, I don't know, let's say 70% transparent gray outline of this. That way it's a bit of a hint of what it could be, but by showing me the final model right here, and you're not done with it because you're fixing to go into development, it doesn't make sense. So back off the finality, make it a little bit more lo-fi. Maybe this works, maybe this doesn't. Is there something a bit more subtle we can do? Because Linux, I can easily read that. Linux is $40. The rigid is, you know, a bit more expensive. It's hard to read general, but maybe I just see it through process of elimination, so maybe this is not necessary. But my idea was, man, maybe put a dot, a colored dot, so the general would be a black dot, Linux would be red, and rigid would be orange. Or just forget what I said and we'll figure it out by process of elimination. But I definitely agree with changing this because you really haven't solved it at that point. It is functional prototyping. I love the simplicity of this solution, but I don't think you ever communicate. Listen, what we did, we took a hand clamp and we took this cutter and we cut them apart and we put them together. Ta-da! And then we tested to see if it would work. And oh my gosh, it did. It's simple. Why hasn't this been done before? I think you're missing an important, like, developmental stage. This plus this equals this. Why hasn't it done? It's almost too simple. Does it not work? Let's test it. We tested it. It worked. Are we really onto something? Okay, it did work, and then we went into development. And we're talking about just like superficial development, right? So like, how do these fit for Western Forge? I don't know how I feel about dropping in all the visual brand language elements yet, but maybe there's a functional reason why these lines go the way they do. Maybe there's a functional and an aesthetic reason. So I would like a little bit more description on these, and it could be, you know, line it up, simple statement. Cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's a perfect opportunity. I haven't read these. Quick cut. Do we need to give it a name yet? The general color would be my quick cut. Just an idea. This is a perfect place. I mean, you have like a 50-50 split, so it's more of a comparative thing. It takes just as long in terms of steps, but Y is your superior. So if it's in here, once again, maybe a little bold could help me find it faster. If it's not, maybe it's worth including. Girl, I would not read any of that. Quick adjustments were easy. Quick release, good. Curved, good. Or not, pistol grip. One hand to adjust. Good. All right, let's see it in action. Ta-da. Okay. If possible, I want detail shots. The problem with detail shots is I'm seeing basically everything I'm seeing. Actually, I feel like I'm missing something, right? Because we developed these guys, and they're not implemented. See what I'm saying? I mean, there's an opportunity to go into the visual brand language and the color and some of the form. I'll leave that up to you. Also, this ergonomic pistol grip doesn't look very ergonomic, especially these appearing sharp edges. So just overall, it works fine. Just a couple of details that I think could be improved. Okay. that's all for studio class. I've got a second year student who is asking for feedback. So since he has asked, and since I'm already in this, ta-da, we're going to do it. Ask and you shall receive. Don't look at my inbox. No one look at my inbox. Alright, so I looked at this guy yesterday, so we ain't got to talk about it. Cool. Alright. Alright, I'd like to separate the word T and set, because when I start reading it, like I'm not a diagnosed dyslexic, but sometimes I see what I want to see, and I see teaser misspelled. The Homestead teaser. So, is it even right? Who is right? Dylan or Ben in this situation? How about a T set? Alright. Looks good. Get my face. What's a T set? Is a misspelled word. Okay. Well, Dylan, I think we have found the solution. Earlier on, I felt like that worked. Now it just definitely doesn't work. Let's see what changed. Background. No. I'm not really 100% sure why it doesn't work anymore. One issue is you have black and white in the background, and all you can do is hit 50% gray. Something's got to change. My gut reaction is to say, let's change the color of your heading. Individual object is shared language. I think you could say shared VBL. Typically, if you introduce an acronym, you got to explain the acronym. Also, but I'm a bit partial how this project was named Same But Different. Same family, different form. Maybe it's worth leaving there. Maybe it needs a change. At some point, you will come back and redo these sketches. I think these sketches are good for second year, but I've been looking at fourth year and grad school portfolios. They will be redone at some point, and they're going to be so deliciously good. Just throwing that out there. So this is exploration. I wonder, we'll see how it unfolds. I'm a bit tempted to do a mood board here to get some type of inspiration for what's the form's going to be developed. But let us see. Market exploration. Something I think that could help is, even though it's subtle, that shadow grounds this, and the rest of these guys are flying. And it could be go into Photoshop and just make some very simple lo-fi shadows that ground these things. That way they all feel on the same page. But given the contrast, that one's sitting, that one's flying. I'm not reading any of this. We could also just make make the language, the statements, just more simple. See, how I began the project was by studying the marketplace to find successful family designs. Let's make it a statement. I noticed that successful family designs have blank. Or I noticed that handle design is a huge contributor to appearing as a family. Finessing. I do like the word finessing. I wouldn't describe that as a development yet. Let me see. Especially, okay, they're different. I know we did this in CAD. So you can show the development in CAD or either show it here. Regardless, maybe this is done in Illustrator, where you can do more of a consistent through-line weight. I mean, you could do it in pen and pencil as well, but it seems like it's a bit, because it's all orthographic, it'll be better communicated, because there's no reason why you can't develop things in Illustrator. And then you'd have a consistent line weight. It'd look a lot more clean, because what I'm noticing first is how these line thicknesses are crisp and light, and maybe that's a bit too light, but that's kind of chunky and messy. Once again, we're losing a bit of that. And I'm not a big fan of throwing, like, you have two different levels of finality. You have your finished, whatever steel default coating they have, and then you have your final model. Let's show a page of all this, and then the next page we show this. A lot of times you don't have to show orthographics to really communicate. I think the most successful orthographic is between these two. I'd like to see that turned to the left 90 degrees. I want the side profile of these in orthographic. But the foreview, not so necessary. This is good. Some of this is good. And I might leave out, I might show that profile, but this then feels chunky. So to reiterate, this doesn't go on this page. Let's develop the CAD model here. Next thought, you show me the final. Nice, little depth of field. Go with your best self. Only thing I would include is, and I would still do these full page renders, is the side profile. So that's a good detail. That's a good hero shot. It would be this one. So introduce the idea of what these guys look in orthographics. You're going to put a page right here. All these guys in focus, probably a side view, and then I want you to do call outs about what makes them a family and what makes them individual. So this next page is really solving the problem, and then you're putting it in context, which is it's pretty close to context. It's not perfect, but I think it'll work. And if you could, this is me being picky, you see this seam here? That's more of a rendering issue. If you can throw that into Photoshop, do a little bit of a blending mode, or it's a little bit of a, what's that guy called? Spot healing brush. Just make that line disappear. You need a statement at the final. I don't know, make a statement about T-sets. That's all the info that I've got.